People talk about him shooting the ball, not wanting to pass the ball. He would pass the ball, but then if you missed a couple shots when he kicked it out to you, he'd tell your ass, if you don't hit the next one, I ain't passing that shit to you no more. Kevin McHale was locking Karl Malone up on the other end, and Larry was talking about, yeah, we two bad white boys, ain't we? Penny was like, I can't wait till we play the Lakers. I'm gonna go at that young boy. He tried to embarrass me. He changed back to number 23, so when we came out, it was like, oh, shit. Sprewell, he was like a crazed animal.
Welcome back to another episode of Podcast P, presented to you by Prize Picks, a Wave Sports and Entertainment original. We have another special guest in the building to present to you guys another episode of Story Mode. This guy right here has been a part of my career almost from the very start. One thing I love about him, he ain't afraid to tell it how it is. Introducing my guy, B. Shaw. Appreciate you coming on to the show, B.
Appreciate you
Second best.
Finally having me.
I know that's on us.
Man,
that's
y'all been on a year and a half, but it's all good.
We were saving it, we were saving it for a special time.
He been waiting too, P, at your event.
The golf.
He got on me for you.
Oh, okay.
Because he been waiting on you to tell him when he gonna do the podcast.
I just want to be a part, man. That's all.
I ain't lying. He ain't afraid to tell it how it is.
Give some context, because we said the word afterthought. I want you to kind of, this is your opportunity to kind of explain to Paul why that's the new nickname.
Well, I'm sure like when I saw that Mr. Bomber had been on here, so I'm sure when he came, he got more than like a day or two notice to come on the show and what everything was going to be about. Yeah. So it just led me to believe, because I'm a truth teller, that I was probably an afterthought. Like, you couldn't find a guest. You needed to fill a slot. This All-Star break is here. We leaving on the plane in about an hour from now. And so, who could we get to come at the last minute? The afterthought would be Shaw.
So you afterthought.
Black thought is in the roots, and I'm afterthought.
They did you dirty like that?
No, that ain't all the way true. So we've always threw it out like, yo, let's get B Shaw. Like, he got story for days. He'll be great for this setting because he played with all of them. He done been and seen everything.
5 decades.
That's
the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now we're in the 2020s.
You still look young.
57, ain't bad.
It just so happened at the time that we needed to shoot this, it couldn't work out for nobody's schedule.
It's all good.
So it was a timing thing.
I got love for you, so I'm gonna be here. You call on me, I'm gonna be here for you, man.
I got you.
Come on, B.
We just got just a heads up. We're shooting this during the All-Star break, so anything that happens during All-Star weekend, we'll address that the following Monday. So make sure y'all like, subscribe, and stay tuned to Podcast P. Follow all of our socials. All right, well, this is a special episode of Story Mode, so we want to get right into the stories right away. 2000, this was the height of my basketball, early watching, being a kid, watching the Lakers. We're going back to Game 7, Western Conference Finals. Y'all playing the Portland Trail Blazers in a pivotal Game 7 that probably could have changed the landscape of that decade if y'all lost to the Blazers. Y'all go on to win. You hit some clutch threes. But during that, was there any point where y'all wavered y'all confidence, or was y'all like, man, we in the hole because y'all was down big? What was that huddle like? Well,
it was, we felt like that Western Conference Finals was going to be, that was actually the championship for us. Mm-hmm. Portland all season long had been the team, they'd just gotten Pippen, Steve Smith and Sabonis, all the guys that they had, Rasheed Wallace that they had on that team. And so we knew that it was going to come down to the two of us. And momentum is a funny thing. We had it early in the series. Mm-hmm. They caught fire later on. And, and in that Game 7, they got up huge on us. And I just remember beginning of fourth quarter, Phil Jackson said we were looking to get the ball into Shaq too much, and we got to just let it go. And so when your coach tells you basically you got the green light to let it fly, mm-hmm. I made up my mind, as well as, Rick Fox and Robert Horry and the rest of the guys. We throw it into Shaq, they go double team him, he kicks it out. Now we're going to let it fly. And so it gave us the freedom to, to do that. Portland was up, standing up, hooting and hollering and talking a lot of shit that entire time when they got that lead. But we felt like, okay, they front runners. Let's see, we're not going out like this.
Yeah.
And, I had played with Shaq in Orlando prior, and we got swept in the finals against Olajuwon in the Houston Rockets in 1995. And so I know we looked at each other and was like, definitely we're not going out like that again. And so, hit the first one, hit the next one, momentum started to change. And then you saw them kind of playing more not to lose as opposed to playing to win. And so, the rest is history.
That was a young Kobe. What was in that moment? Did you see more of the vocal leader in Kobe that rallied y'all together, or like who was the vocal leader in that moment when y'all was going through that stretch?
Well, I mean, it was our coach. Kobe and Shaq both led by example. So they just went out there and got it done. Now, what I appreciate about Kobe especially is he wasn't. You say that I'm not afraid to tell the truth and tell it like it is. He was that way on the floor. People talk about him shooting the ball, not wanting to pass the ball. He would pass the ball, but then if you missed a couple shots when he kicked it out to you, he'd tell your ass, if you don't hit the next one, I ain't passing that shit to you no more. And I don't want to hear your mouth about me not passing the ball. So he put that pressure on you. Yeah. And either you could take it, or you couldn't. And so I think it was just more of a feeling and more of a look that once we started going, we knew what we had as a team. And once we got it going, nobody needed to say anything. And it just flowed and happened the way it happened organically. And in our confidence, it never wavered. But once the momentum changed back into our favor, we just rode it on, to the end.
What is that like playing with them two? Like I just saw, I think it was like Iguodala, I think PJ Tucker was even on it, but they were talking about how it can be difficult to get going as a player when the ball's not in your hands. And so you have those two guys on your team, and then you have the added pressure of Kobe telling it like it is and coming up to you and saying, hey, if you don't make the next shot, I'm not passing it to you. How as a player do you kind of work through that?
Well, we had, obviously our coaching staff was very experienced. They had won 6 championships with the Bulls. One of our assistant coaches, Tex Winter, always told us that, if with all things being equal, you play 20% of the time with the ball in your hand and the other 80% of the time without it in your hand, right? Because only one player can have the ball at a time. There's 5 players on the court. So the other 80% of the things that you're doing are really more important than the 20% that one player has that ball in his hand. So we knew, the triangle offense basically is you got, especially when you have 2 players like Kobe and Shaq, you take them 2 bad motherfuckers and put them over there and put them in a 2-man game. And what you're gonna blitz the pick and roll, or you're not gonna go under Kobe. So they got their little thing going. If you take away what they're doing over there, you got 3 dudes on the other side that are capable of hitting the ball, hitting shots when they're open, that have high basketball IQ, and know exactly how to make whatever play needs to be made, at that particular time. So for us, it wasn't a matter of not letting them down. It was easier for us because they get double teamed and triple teamed, and teams are game planning them as opposed to us. So, I miss enough. We have young players on our team now that weren't born when I was playing, and they asked me about my game, and they say, you were a shooter, huh? I said, no, I wasn't a shooter. I just made timely shots. And so playing with Kobe and Shaq and them getting the attention, it's like those dunks that you have on your shoe, right? They might cost $150 for a pair of shoes, right? So you got the sole, you got the upper of the shoe and what have you. That's Kobe and Shaq. They take the brunt of everything. The rest of us were like the shoelace. The shoelace holds that shoe together.
Right.
So without the shoelace, you don't have any support. So we were very good and accepting of we're the support players. Y'all score 65 to 75 points. The rest of us will score, between the 2 of them, the rest of us will score 30 points combined. We'll score 100 and we'll hold teams under 100. And that kind of was our recipe for in the playoffs. And so we were good with that.
And was there any like shock? Like that lob that he threw to Shaq was probably one of the most iconic like Kobe Shaq moments. But Kobe, you know, you've probably seen Kobe force a few game winners. Was there any shock within the team or any jokes that were said about like Kobe actually gave the ball up there to Shaq?
We joked about it afterwards, but it wasn't really a joke. Like when it really came down to it, like the media made more of the beef between the two of them. And one area that they were really professional about is that when it was time to play and to win a game, they gave it everything they had. All the other, you know, beefs and grudges or anything else that might have been going on, they put that to the side and they handled the business when it was time to handle the business. Now, I wish that it could have, you know, there was less beefing and stuff away from the court, because I think if that team wouldn't have been broken up, then there could have been more success and more championships behind it. But I still think we maximized what we had, and nobody was really surprised when Kobe threw that pass to Shaq. It was the right play, the right play to make, and you know, 10 times out of 10 in those situations, they were going to make the right play.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of breaking up, since that was the start of the Lakers three-peat, do you think if y'all would have lost that series to the Blazers, y'all would have broke up the team?
Some of us would have been gone for sure. I mean, you know, you're gonna keep Shaq and Kobe. Obviously, they were the core of the team, but then they would have, you know, immediately looked to. I mean, I was at the, you know, towards the end of my career. Ron Harper was you know, he was older. Robert Horry as well. So, you know, some of us peripheral players would have probably been somewhere else, and they would have tried to upgrade those positions. And even after that, like Glenn Rice was on that team. He wasn't on the team for the second championship the next year, you know. So every year, and it's hard for guys in today's game to understand that team that you come into training camp with and that you go through the season with, and if you're fortunate enough to win a championship, when it's done, it's not going to be the exact same team that you come back with next year, regardless, because you're going to have draft picks that are going to be on the team. Yep. You're going to have other guys that sign free agency and go somewhere else. So, and that was Phil Jackson's first year. So, you know, like I said, some of us would have been gone, but the core group would have remained the same.
We wanted to take a brief break from the episode to let you know that Prize Picks has got you guys covered when it comes to helping you make some money during the NBA season.
That's right, baby. Prize Picks is helping me cash in. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy app, and with the NBA season in full swing, you can select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and turn $25 into $250. Prize Picks is really easy, simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds, y'all.
It's also that time of the year where many sports are happening at the same time. And of course, Prize Picks allows you to pick combo projections across all different sports like basketball. You can even do esports like League of Legends and CS2 Go. So you can support all your favorite teams while still cashing in.
Well, I know for me, I've been cashing in. I don't know about that. I'm talking about Legion of Dooms and all that stuff. But that's a story for another day. Be sure to visit prizepicks.com/podcastp and use code podcastp for a first deposit match up to $100. And y'all already know what time it is.
Cha-ching!
Now back to the show.
Continuing on through the stories, the following season, y'all sweep basically the first 3 teams, right? Y'all run through the Blazers, y'all run through the Kings, y'all run through the Spurs, 11-0. Now y'all facing a red-hot AI in the championship that following season. What was that like going into that? Because y'all at a high, y'all feeling good, and then now y'all coming across AI. What was that locker room like? Because I know Kobe wanted this matchup.
For sure, and it was in his playing against a team, you know, where he grew up in Philly. But we weren't worried about Philly at all because we had gotten in such a groove that season and in the playoffs. When we went through those first 3 rounds, we didn't have to call any plays or anything. The triangle is basically if the team is taking what the defense gives you. When they took away certain things, we just did our autos and counters to what they took away. And so we were in such a groove. I don't know if any team would have, you know, now we dropped that first game. I think we had 11 days off because we swept everybody. The Eastern Conference was still playing. So our biggest thing was how do we stay sharp during this 11-day layoff, you know, which is unheard of, especially.
Damn, y'all had 11 days
11
off?
days.
Going into the finals?
Going into the finals because we had to wait for the Eastern Conference, I think, Philly and Toronto, I think it was, that went 7 games or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that situation, they had Iverson, I think, who was the MVP of the league that year. Aaron McKee was 6th man of the year. Mutombo was defensive player of the year. Larry Brown was coach of the year. So that was Phil Jackson used that to kind of keep us grounded, like, this is going to be tough because they got all the guys that won all the awards and this, that, and the other, even though we knew that nobody couldn't really fuck with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so Iverson came out hot in that first game. I think he scored 48. That's the game that he stepped over T. Lue.
Mm-hmm.
T. Lue hadn't been in the rotation, hadn't been playing at all. And I remember we were all dejected after the game because we wanted to go. No team had gone through. At that time, you only had to win 15 games to win the championship in the playoffs. No team had gone 15-0. And so that was our motivation, our goal. When we lost that first game, I remember being in the shower after the game, and Ty Lue, who had come in for the first time, and he really did a good job on Iverson during the time that he was in the game. And he had his head down, and I said, man, don't have your head down. I said, do you realize how much money you just made for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, what you mean? And I said, you keep on making it hard for Iverson when you go out there, and every team on the Eastern Conference is going to want you just to try to combat Iverson because his contract was up at the end of that season. And so, we lost that game, and then, it just broke the momentum of us, sweeping that series as well, like we did the other ones. But, we just said, now we just got to end it in Philly, which we did. And we did, I guess, what you would call a reverse sweep. After we lost that first game. That. Right.
Did something just feel different about that season? Like, because I know y'all had just won the championship the previous year, like, and then y'all go on that stretch of 11-0 in the postseason. At what point, like, during that season, did y'all feel like, oh, okay, we got another one in us?
I mean, we felt it. We felt it after we won the first one, because the majority of that team was coming back. I think we added. For that second championship, we added J.R. Ryder, who wasn't active during the playoffs. We added Horace Grant, who had championship experience with the Bulls, who was on our team in Orlando with Shaq and I when we got swept in the finals. So we added some guys that we felt, even strengthened us even more. And we, like I said, I felt that if it wasn't for that, the fourth season after we won 3, we could have won 4 in a row. Shaq had to get toe surgery. A lot of things happened, that kind of broke everything up. But we were confident that we were the best team, and we showed that throughout the season in each one of those seasons.
Yeah. I got to ask one more follow-up on that. I mean, because we talked about Kobe and Shaq and their relationship. But as y'all winning, did you feel that, like, that pulled them further, or was winning the championships was bringing them somewhat a little closer?
Well, like I said before, there was a closeness between them when it got between the lines, right? But there was a competitiveness between them
about who's number one. And
because as petty as it sounds, if the games were on NBC or ABC, whoever had the contract at that time, if they said Shaq and the Lakers versus Allen Iverson and the Philadelphia 76ers, then Kobe would get mad. And if they said Kobe and the Lakers and it didn't say Shaq, then he would get mad. But that was their competitiveness. Yeah. Now, I had been through that before in Orlando with Penny and Shaq, the same thing. And Shaq is a big dude. Shaq, as a point guard, and everybody, I would say, with the exception of Kobe that played with Shaq, deferred to Shaq. It's your team. You the big fella. He was going to have the biggest house. He was going to have the most cars. You wasn't going to outdo him in every area. So most of us, 99.9% of us, were like, all right, big fella, it's yours, and we fed into that. Kobe wasn't having that. So when he would come back after the season was over and working hard all off season to get in shape, and Phil would tell Shaq, take this, you've been beat up the whole season long. Take this, use next season to get yourself in shape for when the playoffs come around. And then Shaq would come in training camp out of shape, And Kobe would be like, I work my ass off and your fat ass gonna come in training camp out of shape and overweight, what have you. And then that's where
it kind of started.
That's where it would kind of start. But they would say that and it would get out there. But once the game started and we got between the lines, they just handled their business.
Hilarious. Bringing up Allen Iverson that year when he won the MVP, can you describe to me how was it having to guard Allen Iverson at his peak?
Yeah, I can tell you it was damn near impossible. And I say that because when I first came in the league, and I think all the way up until 93, you could hand check. And then after that, you couldn't hand check anymore. So I was 180 pounds when I first came in the league, and there were strong-ass guards like Alvin Robertson and Joe Dumars and Derek Harper that could put their hand around my waist and move me around, right? Because they were that strong, I was that skinny, and you could hand check. It was legal. When Iverson came in the league, the hand checking, there was no hand checking anymore. So if a guy caught the ball and he turned and he faced, you couldn't have your hands on him at all. And with his quickness and his ball handling ability and the fact that he was always in attack mode, like I said, it was virtually impossible to guard.
And he's getting 30 shots.
Yeah.
So it's,
a lot of people don't know, I played half a season for the Sixers in 97, the year that Larry Brown moved Iverson from the 1 to the 2. And the reason why he did that, Eric Snow and I were the point guards on that team. And the reason why he did that, because he would dribble around for 20 seconds trying to get his shot off and then throw you a grenade the last 2 to 4 seconds because he couldn't get his shot off. So then, Larry Brown was like, you know what, we're going to take him off the ball and at least initiate the offense and start it over here and then bring it back to him, and let him do his thing. But yeah, he was hard to guard.
Did you ever get a piece of that crossover?
Oh, yeah.
You got that?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to know if you got that.
No shame, which means that I was out there on the court.
Right. Like, where did the hand check rule, like who in the league, because I know, like, it's got to be somebody in particular that they had to implement this rule.
I think it was more so that the game started slowing down. It was more so probably when Pat Riley was coaching the Knicks and the style of play that they started to play. I mean, you had the bad boy Pistons in the late 80s and the early 90s and big men that if you came down the lane, they was going to put you on your back. And you've seen some of the fouls and some of the physicality that went on, and it was nothing like you could fight.
Right.
And throw punches and not get thrown out of the game.
Right.
Maybe just get a technical foul. And so I think the league was just trying to get away from that level of physicality, and they wanted the scores to start elevating, rising more than what they were. Because, at that time, the games were, you might win a game 95-89, and people want action and they want to get up and down. The 3-point shot wasn't as relevant then as it is now. So what that did is it allowed for players like him that were very skilled offensively and fast to be able to it increased possessions in the game and it increased scoring. And that's what the fans want to see, and so it kind of opened it up for that to happen.
Got it. You played with Shaq twice throughout your career, once in Orlando, as you mentioned, and then when you came to LA with the Lakers. From that 94 Shaq up until when you joined the Lakers, what was the biggest difference you noticed in Shaq's game and his improvement?
He was more mature, when he was always like a big kid, but he was more mature by the time I got with him with the Lakers. He started to feel more like, people were going to look at him like he wasn't living up to his billing because he hadn't won anything yet. And so he filled out, he just had more experience under his belt by the time he got to the Lakers. And imagine the Shaq that from the Lakers, who was probably that whole time when he was on the Lakers, probably around the 300-pound mark and bigger.
Yeah.
When he was in Orlando with us, he was probably 275, 280.
Flying.
And he was flying up and down the court, and he was agile and he was active, and he had as much mobility as anybody. And like you saw him acting, you saw him rapping.
Everything.
But if you took a dude 5'10" and you put him on this table right here and you called out some dances for him to do, Shaq could do every dance as well or if not better than somebody a lot smaller. And so he had that and just that type of energy, what have you. And so definitely two different players, but both of them were dominant.
I want to talk about one of PG's favorite players, Mr. Penny Hardaway. If Penny Hardaway was injury-free, you know what I'm saying, didn't get injured so much, how legendary do you think his career would have been? Because, of course, you was there. You know he was a special guy. You got to see him up close. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think Penny Hardaway would have been in the discussion, especially if he would have had a long career, let's say somewhere that spanned around the time that Kobe's did and how LeBron's, played 20 years now. If he could have played, 15 to 18 years in the NBA, I think he'd be in the discussion about being the GOAT.
Yeah.
He was that talented. He was 6'8". He could post up. He could shoot threes. He could handle the ball. He was one of the best passers that the league has ever seen. He had a super high basketball IQ, and he had that same competitiveness and drive that you've seen in Kobe, that you saw in Shaq, and those guys. He was just more quiet with it, but definitely, and anybody who played against him, from Jordan to Kobe and anybody else, would tell you the same thing. Like, he was coming, and it was no accident that in his second year and Shaq's third year, we went to the finals. Had the best record in the East and got to the finals. We were the last team to knock off Jordan, one of his playoff teams. And so that was a super young team, and it's just unfortunate that he had the injury, and I think it never got well enough because he came back. He wanted to play so bad.
He came back
way too early, and it never got right. It's also unfortunate that the players of today didn't really get a chance to really, really see him, because he was, like I said, he would be in the discussion as one of the best to ever do it.
You didn't do one of them Penny Hardaway commercials with him?
Nah, the Lil Penny, and they created Lil Penny because he was so quiet, that they wanted something to kind of bring out his personality.
Wow.
And when I said that I saw Shaq and Kobe, before Shaq and Kobe, it was Shaq and Penny. And I still remember Shaq was with Reebok, and it was like, I think Reebok's thing was, "It's your world" or whatever. And Shaq was doing a commercial, and he was sitting on the couch like that, Reebok commercial. They had Lil Penny jump up on the couch and say, "Hey, Shaq, can I be in your world?" And Shaq turned around and elbowed Lil Penny off the couch. You remember that commercial?
I remember that. Off the couch.
And I remember when I saw that, and I was like, "Oh, that ain't cool." Like Reebok did the commercial, and it was funny.
Yeah.
Whatever. But for the two of them, being teammates, and that was Penny's thing.
Yeah.
That was like I said, what I saw with them later on down the line with him and Kobe. It was just that competitiveness. Reebok, Nike. Is it Penny in the Orlando Magic playing whoever, or playing Jordan in the Bulls, or is it Shaq in the Orlando Magic playing? So it was just the whole thing reincarnated again when Kobe came through.
Got it.
I can share one story about Penny and Kobe. So I played against Kobe's father in Italy.
Okay.
And that's when I first met him. He was about 10 years old. And I didn't see him from that year that I played in Italy. I didn't see him again until he was a junior in high school.
Wow.
His father brought him to that's the year we were in the finals against Houston. And his father brought Kobe, Jelly Bean brought Kobe to the game. And now I'm looking at him, he's 6'6", same height as me. And he's telling me, "Man, I'm thinking about coming coming straight into the NBA out of the 11th grade."
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I hadn't seen him, followed him or whatever, but I'm like, man, this dude crazy talking about he's going to jump to the NBA in the 11th grade. I remember now he looked up to Penny.
Yeah.
So the next year I see his press conference that he's going to college and going to enter the draft. At that time, Magic Johnson used to have his Magic's Midsummer Nights.
That little event out here in L.A.
Right. Charity game and all of that, right? All the
Baron
parties.
Davis took over.
Right, Baron and Pete Pierce took that over.
Yeah.
So all the guys, and all the big stars would come out and play in that. So Penny was playing in it, and Magic put Kobe was just getting ready to come into the league, put him on the other team. So, in the All-Star game and, in a charity game like that, everybody just having a good time putting on a show for the fans. Kobe was going at Penny's rack.
Yeah, he took it serious.
Yeah, he took it serious and he was talking crazy. And so Penny was like, kind of like, damn, okay. So I remember he circled the calendar the following season. When he came back to training camp, he was like, I can't wait till we play the Lakers. I'm gonna go at that young boy.
Yeah.
He tried to embarrass me at Magic's thing when we was all trying to take it easy.
Because how many years was Penny older than Kobe at that time?
I think maybe 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And so this had to be 90. I think Kobe was drafted in 96. So this was going into the 96, 97 season. It was that summer going into that.
Okay.
And I think Penny came in the league in 94.
Okay.
Or maybe, 2 or 3 years ahead.
So this is prime Penny.
Prime Penny.
Yeah.
And when we played him, Kobe wasn't playing. So he didn't get a chance to really go at him. But it was, that was Kobe's mentality, whether we were playing Jordan, anybody else who was supposed to be that guy, he was going to test you and try to get a piece of you.
Yeah. What was the conversations after that, like, pickup game when y'all see young Kobe, like, oh,
youngster.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Yeah, this young boy, he coming.
Well,
like, was that the conversation? Everybody knew he was coming out?
Oh, yeah, because imagine his confidence level. The Lakers just traded their starting center to Charlotte because that's where he got drafted, to Charlotte.
Yep.
Traded Vlade to get Kobe. They had Eddie Jones, who was really, really good. He was an all-star, and all of that. And then he wasn't playing. And so he was hungry. He wanted to play anybody who would play him. And even when I got on the team with Kobe, every year, like I told you, we added J.R. Rider. And then the next year we added Lindsey Hunter and Mitch Richmond to that Laker team. Even later on when I started coaching and Ron Artest came to the Lakers, the first thing that Kobe would tell Phil is, when we start scrimmaging, put me on the other team, because he needed to establish the pecking order. This is my shit, and I'm going to let you know that this is my shit. So I remember J.R. Rider scored on Kobe and was talking shit one day in practice early in that season.
Wrong thing.
So Kobe said, me and you after practice, one-on-one. And so Phil stopped practice. And then we all just went and sat on the side
and watched them two
play one-on-one.
Yeah.
And Kobe and J.R. Ryder could hoop.
Ate his ass up.
And Kobe ate his ass up. He chewed him up. And so we were sitting on the sideline, and Horace Grant, I remember going, be careful what you ask for. And he got so mad that he came over the sideline, fist balled up, all swole up. He was like, I'll beat all y'all asses, because he was so embarrassed, but that's what Kobe did that with Artest. He did that with Mitch Richmond. He did that with Lindsey Hunter when he came. Later on, Jim Jackson and Aaron McKee they signed with the Lakers later on in their career. Same thing. He was going to establish the pecking order. This is my shit. I'm the guy, and you got to come through me.
Yeah,
hilarious.
I love that.
Kobe dope. That's some shit you would do, P.
You
so competitive.
Yeah. That's different though. That's different.
I like in that story that the coach allowed that, and that's kind of a testament
Jackson
to what he was actually doing. Like, you don't hear many coaches like
let that happen.
Like if
but you got to think he was cut out for that, having Jordan,
right?
So he knew
like, hey,
what that meant.
Let's handle this right now.
Phil never liked to have team meetings, and so we insisted one day. We like, you know what? Fuck what you talking about, because everybody was mad because early on Cole wouldn't pass the ball. So Phil had no problem cussing Shaq out, getting on Shaq's ass, but he would never say anything to Kobe early on. So I have German Shepherds, and they are protection trained and what have you. And my dog trainer always said to me, the first 6 to 8 months that you had this puppy, don't ever tell it no, because what we want to do is we want this dog to be so confident that he feels like he could do everything. The discipline part can come later on, once his confidence is at a certain point, right? So even he gonna chew up shit in your house, in your yard or whatever. You just gotta
say no.
You just gotta deal with it. Let your dog do whatever. So he feels like he's the dude. He's the man. So when we had the team meeting, and I remember asking Phil, how come you don't never say nothing to Shaq? I mean, you always say everything to Shaq. You don't say nothing to Kobe. And he said, because for this team, we always need Kobe to be in attack mode. And then that immediately made me think about what my dog trainer said about my German Shepherd.
Need to be in attack mode.
And so it was exactly what our team needed, right? Shaq came from a disciplinary, his stepfather was military, right? Yes, sir, no, sir. And whatever you asked him to do and told him to do, he was obedient. Kobe was that German Shepherd puppy that nobody ever said no to, right? He had sisters. He was the only boy.
Yeah.
Father played in the NBA. And he was the golden child, right? So, and then Phil nurtured that confidence in him at the detriment, now I wouldn't say detriment, but at the expense of us the rest of us on the team getting the brunt of him yelling and screaming and what have you, but not saying a whole lot to Kobe. And then, but
That's
you
crazy.
see how,
amazing.
yeah, and we needed that. And he was always in attack mode.
Yeah. You just talk about Phil just knowing personalities and how to kind of coach everybody differently. Like, do you feel Phil Jackson was the only man for that job between those two?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I played for, different coaches. I think one of the things I respect about Popovich is it didn't matter if I saw him getting Tim Duncan's ass, Tony Parker, Ginobili, David Robinson. Like, it was no hierarchy in terms of when it was time to coach you, you're going to be coached. And coaching is so much different now than it was then, right? Because players don't want to feel like they're being shown up now. But coaches then, it was times when players and coaches fought. It was times when agents and GMs fought when they're negotiating contracts. And so you got cussed out all the time, and it was nothing. That was the way it was done. We live in a different time now, so that doesn't fly like it used to.
Did Phil ever hold any I don't know how it was because Kobe is pretty self-motivated, but did he ever Michael would do this? Did he ever hold that over Kobe?
He never did that, and he never answered the question who he thought was better.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Yeah.
He did say later on that he gave Michael the edge over Kobe only because Michael had bigger hands.
Yeah.
And he could palm the ball off the dribble and do stuff that Kobe couldn't do. But even when he said that, then after that came out, Kobe, you saw every time in the locker room, Kobe had vice grips, and he was strengthening his hands so that he could try to get to a point where
Kobe is
so he could get to
where is Kobe? Where is he
That's all I gotta do to get better. All right.
Yeah, it's like, I'm gonna strengthen my hands. And then all you saw him after Phil said that was he trying to get to the point where he could palm the ball.
All right, speaking of MJ, you talked about y'all being one of the last teams to beat a Michael Jordan team in that 95 year. Y'all went to the finals. He came out of retirement that season. So what was that like, the conversations knowing y'all playing against the Bulls, MJ coming out of retirement, y'all got Penny, Shaq, and this is the GOAT in MJ. What was that conversation like when y'all was playing against that Bulls
year,
team?
I mean, we were the number one seed in the East. So, and he had missed most of that year. He was still playing baseball, hadn't come back from playing baseball or whatever yet. And so we felt with him or without him, our record indicated we were exactly where we needed to be, number one seed in the East going into the playoffs. And so once we got to him, obviously he came back and he started playing. He was wearing number 45. So it wasn't the same.
It wasn't the same,
right?
MJ, yeah.
And his timing was a little off. He was a little more rusty. And I remember, and a lot of people may not know this, but within that series, I think after game 2, when we went to Chicago, it was maybe game 2 or game 3, we played the first 2 at home. Jordan changed his jersey back to number 23 because Nick Anderson, after we had won, game 3 or game 4, whichever game it was, he said number 45 ain't what number 23 used to be.
Wow.
And then everybody was like,
wow.
you need to shut your ass up. Because, because he can, I mean, he wasn't far off, And so then when we got back to Chicago, he came out in number 23. And I don't even know if you could really do that.
Yeah.
Change numbers, because I know when you apply for a different number, you got to do it the year before. To be able to do that. But he changed back to number 23. So when we came out, at first it was like, oh, shit.
That 23 just looked different. Like, oh, he Jordan again.
Yeah.
That's Jordan again. What was the league like? Like when it had to be a sigh of relief when y'all knew MJ was going to play baseball. It had to be like, all right, this shit is wide open now.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree. I mean, there were good teams. The Knicks were still good. The Pistons had Grant Hill, at that time. The Pacers were going to the Eastern Conference Finals. We had just beaten them. I think it was the year before to go to the finals. They had Reggie Miller and Rick Smits and Mark Jackson, all the guys that they had. So it was still competitive, but yeah, there was definitely a feeling that, it's anybody's title to be taken. Now, on the other side, the team to deal with was the Rockets with Olajuwon, which we had beat them twice during that year soundly, handily. And but mid-season, they made a trade, and they traded Otis Thorpe and somebody for Clyde Drexler. So we went into that finals very, very confident that we were going to beat the Rockets and win that championship, and it didn't end up happening that way. Once we got there, but it definitely felt like because the Rockets won back-to-back 94 and 95.
Yeah,
but on the Eastern Conference side, with Jordan out, it definitely felt like it was up for grabs. Yeah.
And then the following season, they win 72 games. As a team, did you guys know you were facing kind of a different animal? And then looking at that 72 win Bulls season, if you were going to stack that team up against those three-peat Lakers and let's say the Warriors with KD, where would you rank that Bulls team across those three? So
the worst thing that we did after winning that series against them and that knocked them out was Horace Grant had a real good series against them. And we won that last game in Chicago. And we hoisted Horace Grant up on our shoulders and carried him off the court. And Jordan saw that. So that was his motivation all through the offseason to get back to that point again. I think they felt like they knew they were going to see us again because we were young. Mm-hmm. And so when it got to that next year, the Eastern Conference Finals once again, and it's us and the Bulls. And I think this time they had home court. They had Rodman. They had added Rodman to their team that year. Then we knew that it was going to be, we were facing a different Jordan. He wasn't rusty, and they ended up sweeping us, in that series. So we definitely knew that we were going to have our hands full, and obviously. They went on to win another three-peat. If I was to try to judge I'll tell you this, the Warriors in that 73 win team that they had would be third out of those three because they didn't ended up winning, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they had a great regular season, but at the end of it, if you don't culminate that with a championship, then and the other two teams that you're mentioning in that same breath did – then both of those other teams have three-peated. Mm-hmm. So the Warriors would definitely be third, and then it's hard to say because I feel like Jordan and Kobe cancel each other out, and they still wouldn't have had anybody to deal with Shaq. Mm-hmm. And then the role players for both teams were good. So that's one that we have to wonder about, but it's definitely. The Lakers and the Bulls teams, one A or however you want to look at it, and then the Warriors after that. Because the Warriors had nobody that could deal with Jordan and they had nobody that could deal with Shaq.
Yeah.
You know, but the game is obviously played differently. I think that teams now get away with shooting as many threes and stuff as they have now because there's nobody in the league like Shaq. Probably Joel Embiid is probably the closest
to him.
But they would have to, as many threes as they would be shooting, we would just be throwing the ball inside the Shaq. He would foul everybody out.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no answer to that.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. One relationship misconception is that it must be easy to be successful. But the truth is, successful relationships require effort from both parties. It takes time, patience, and understanding to build a strong foundation. How did therapy contribute to the development of your current great relationship?
I think it's pinpointing the good and the bad, obviously working on the bad, and being mindful of the good. I think just getting that out, talking through it, can help alleviate a lot of, stress and pressure.
What about you, Dallas?
Yeah, I'd say just with therapy, it helps you talk, and really it's just learning how to communicate, kind of, hearing both sides and being able to fight fair and just have a conversation. And I think that helps everything.
Therapy is a safe space where individuals can address and overcome the challenges they face in their relationships with others. It provides an opportunity to explore and work through issues in various relationships, such as with friends, colleagues at work, romantic partners, or anyone else.
Therapy helps learn coping skills, set boundaries, and become your best self. It's not just for those who have experienced major trauma.
If you're considering starting therapy, try BetterHelp. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule.
Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/podcastp today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/podcastp.
Well, us being from LA, I know at the time this probably was amazing news for us. But how devastating was it when Shaq decided to leave Orlando and come to the Lake Show, baby?
So I was actually out fishing. And Pete, Dallas, y'all know I love to fish.
Yeah.
So I was actually out fishing in Orlando with this old man that I used to go fishing with, and I hadn't heard the news. And so while we were out there fishing, he said to me, I think somebody called him or something, and he said, "You're about to find out how hot it really is because you lost your shade tree." And I, yeah, I know, it's crazy, right? An old country ass saying, right?
You lost your shade tree.
Yeah, he said, y'all just lost your shade tree, so now you're gonna see how hot it is. Like, okay, what? And so he's like, yeah, they just said Shaq just signed with the Lakers. So I'm like, for real? So I pull out my, I think, back then we had the Motorola flip phone or whatever, calling around, and lo and behold, Shaq had signed with the Lakers. So everybody was disappointed. Everybody was, the magic to let somebody like Shaq get away at such a young age for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Got nothing in return for it. I didn't understand what that old man's saying until the following season, because our team was built around Shaq being double teamed, right? We had Nick Anderson, we had Dennis Scott, Penny, myself, and then other 3-point shooters that were basically just played off them double teaming them, us swinging it around in a rotation, and whoever was open knocking down threes. Now all of a sudden, you don't have anybody in that low post getting double teamed. The only one that could go get their own shot was Penny, and then the rest of us were role players, support players, right? That the shoelaces,
the shoelaces,
and so now you got shoelace and no shoe, other than Penny. So all those open shots that me and 3D and Nick Anderson and those guys were used to getting disappeared. They dried up. So now, they pressing up on us. And like I say, Penny was the only one that could really go get his.
Yeah.
So then I remember thinking back, I was like, oh, okay, now I understand what that old man was saying. The shade tree is gone. It's hot as a motherfucker right now.
It's sunny out here.
No shade now.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Everybody got a tan that season.
That locker room was quiet, boy.
It was different. And people was coming for us, because y'all ain't got the advantage now.
Right.
They got that big motherfucker out here.
Yeah.
Loving the stories. We want to move it along to back when you first got drafted in '88 to the Boston Celtics. You played one season, then went overseas and played in Italy, to then come back to play 2 more seasons with the Celtics. Was that regular? Like, to go overseas and play overseas, was that was out of the norm back then?
Yeah, everybody said I was crazy for doing what I did, but what happened was the salary cap situations were a little bit different. And the Boston Celtics, even though I was a first-round pick, at that time it was only 25 teams in the league. They were the 24th pick.
Only 25? Was it an odd number?
25 teams in the league at that time. So they were the most that I could make as the minimum that I could make as a first-round pick was $150,000 in 1988. Everybody else that was in my draft class went from the first picks. Danny Manning was the first pick who was making like $1 million something, to everybody to probably down to about $400,000 a year. I only can make $150,000 because the Celtics were, they were paying Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and DJ, Danny Ainge, and so that's all the money that was left. So
there wasn't no rookie scaling back then,
right? So what I was, it was still scaled, but the cap was a little bit more firm in terms of what you could go over. So that was all that was left for me.
Okay.
So instead of signing and getting locked into a 4 or 5 year deal at $150,000 a year, I said I'm going to sign for 1 year and bet on myself, and then I'll become a restricted free agent at the end of my first year. Now, if I don't end up playing and what have you, then I don't have any leverage. What happened. Now I knew that Dennis Johnson was getting old, and so I ended up starting, I think, 62 games my rookie year. They didn't draft another point guard going into that following year. DJ got hurt, I think ruptured his Achilles. So I had all the leverage in the world.
Right.
Well, Boston came back and offered me a qualifying offer at $225,000 for the following seasons. I think a 4-year deal for $225,000 a year, which I was like, I'm still going to be under everybody that was in my draft class, even David Rivers, who was drafted after me by the Lakers with the 25th pick. So Danny Ferry had just gotten drafted by the Clippers, didn't want to come play for the Clippers. So David Falk, who was his agent, signed him to go play with this team in Italy, Il Messaggero. At that time, only the players who had ended their NBA careers towards the end that wanted to make a little bit more money would go over to Europe and play. Or guys that just weren't good enough for the NBA. So at the time, Bob McAdoo was the highest paid player over there, making about $400,000 a year. They gave Danny Ferry $2 million to play over there, and they called and they offered me $1 million to come play for 1 season. And it ain't hard to do the math. Shit, I could pay 4 years, $225,000 a year to make $1 million, or or close to it, or whatever, and then or play 1 year and make $1 million.
Yeah.
And look, I grew up in Oakland on the West Coast, so I wasn't no Celtic fan. So I was like, fuck the Celtics. I'm gonna get this $1 million. I'm gonna play 30, 35 games maybe in the year. So
way sweeter deal.
I gave them 48 hours to give me a better offer. I'm dealing with Red Auerbach and Jan Volk. Jan Volk was the general manager. Red Auerbach was the president of the Celtics. They thought I was bullshitting. 48 hours came. They didn't make me a better offer. The team from Italy faxed me a contract. I signed the contract, faxed it back. The news came out, and then Red Auerbach called me and said, "What are you doing? We'll give you what you want. Tear up the contract." I said, "It's too late now. I signed my contract. I got to go."
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up over there. Had a great year over there playing. And by the end of the season, the team had told me that they were going to tear up my contract and pay me $3 million a year, which nobody in the NBA at that time was even making $2 million a year.
Hey.
So I said, shit, okay, I'm going to stay over here and play some more.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, the problem was halfway through the season, Jan Volk flew from Boston to Italy, to Rome, and we met in a limo. And I signed the contract to go back to Boston. It's starting out at $1.1 million a year going forward. And I had fired my agent, so I'm thinking I'm smart. I can, it looks like a standard contract and everything. Well, it had one little clause in it that said that between the month of June 20th to July 20th, I had to rescind my contract with the Italian team and honor the contract that I just signed in this limo with the Celtics. So I didn't see that clause.
Yeah.
So when the season ended and the Italian team offered me 3 times more money, I wrote a letter to the Celtics and said, when I signed this contract, I didn't have, I wasn't under the advisement of a lawyer, an agent, and I'm deciding to honor my second year to come back to Italy and play. And then they were like, "Nah, you signed. We got a contract with you." So they took me to court. So it was the Boston Celtics, the NBA, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Brian Shaw, which was a big court case at the time, and that's ultimately what landed me back with the Celtics.
With the Celtics. You had to have been hot, dude.
That's crazy.
I was and I wasn't. Yeah. I mean, because I ended up getting the money that I wanted.
Yeah.
Which I felt like I should have been getting, the whole time anyway. And I had to take a lot of heat. When I got back to Boston, everybody was like, calling me Benedict Arnold. How the fuck could you leave the Celtics, because of their storied history and this, that, and the other. But I learned real fast it's a business, right? And I had to look out for they didn't give a shit about me when they paid me $150, which was underpaid, and they only offered me a qualifying offer of $225 after that. So this little nigga from Oakland was like, nah, the math ain't mathin', so we gonna do it this way. And then and so when I got back, the whole first month, and statistically for me, that was my best year in the NBA. The year I came back from Italy and played for Boston. But the first month of the season, every time I touched the ball at home in the Boston Garden, the fans booed me. So, I had to go through a whole lot of shit, and then, what kind of city Boston it was and is. And so, so I had to endure a lot, but I wouldn't take anything back. I would do it all over again.
While you're there in Boston, you play alongside the Bird, Larry. What was most memorable stories with Larry that you can tell us about? Because we all know how notorious of a shit talker he was.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, how much shit he talked, right? Because I thought when I first got there, and having grown up on the West Coast and always pulled against the Celtics when they were playing against the Lakers, during the Showtime days, I was like, man, they letting this white boy who can't jump, who's not athletic, kill them like that. He ain't that damn good until I got there.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the first practices, he told me and Reggie Lewis, he said, I want to play you guys 1-on-2 up to 7, right? And so come on, man. He was like, the only catch is I get the ball first. So me and Reggie look at each other. We like, yeah, all right, man, whatever. So the next thing you know, it's 6-0.
Yeah.
Right? We ain't even touched the ball yet. He hits his first 6 shots.
Yeah.
So when it got to be 6-0 and we go into 7, we because it would be like one of us would guard him and another one would be ready to try to get the rebound. So we was like, fuck that. We double teamed him. He finally missed. We got the ball. And then we just kind of played keep away from him. We end up coming back and winning 7-6. So then I was like, and that was one of my early experiences with him. I was like, okay, all right, he got a little bit more than what I thought he had. Then when we started playing, he was cooking everybody, but talking shit and telling them about it. And Kevin McHale was a bad motherfucker too. And he used to talk a lot of shit. So they would, and I'll share this quick story. We were playing Utah, and back then you score on a play, you just keep running it again until they stop it. So I would have to hit Reggie, go through, set a cross screen for Larry, and Karl Malone was guarding Larry. Larry was killing him. Kevin McHale was locking Karl Malone up on the other end. And Larry was talking about, yeah, we two bad white boys, ain't we? So I remember going across, setting the screen on Karl the first time. Larry came off, caught it, scored. As we were running back down the court, Karl Malone said, young fella, you set a screen on me again like that, I'm going to knock your head off your shoulders. the whole time I'm running down court, I'm like, damn, is he really going to do this shit? And I know we're about to run the play again, right? Because we just scored on it. So I hit Reggie again. I go across to set the pick. I'm standing in the middle of the lane. Larry cuts off. And I see Carl rear his forearm back like this. So I'm standing in. I'm like, is this motherfucker really going to try to do it? And then he came through, and at the last second, I jumped out the way. And I was like, damn, he really? Yeah. And he was going to take it out on me because Larry was busting his ass, busting his ass and talking shit. But, that story and the last one that stuck out with me, as a rookie, we were staying at the Howard Johnson's Motel by Fenway Park. And Larry came and got all the rookies that were trying out for the team and took us to dinner. And so we're sitting at dinner. We can't believe, like, Larry Bird is actually taking us out. And we said, hey, where is it that we can go out down here in Boston tonight? He said, go to the Ramrod. It's a club right across the street from the motel.
Ramrod. Yeah.
So the name right there, right, the Ramrod, I'm like, that don't sound right, right?
Sound a little fishy.
So we get back, we wait until it gets a little bit later and shit, come out the motel, and across the street is the club, the Ramrod. So we come out and look, and it's a long ass line waiting to get in. So we walk across the street. It's dark out. It's all dudes in black leather and motorcycles and shit, but all not one single woman.
Yeah.
So we like, and the club is called the Ramrod. So we was like, oh, okay. He was trying to do us dirty. So when we got to practice the next day in training camp, he was cracking up, about it. But that's where he sent it. So he had a great sense of humor. He talked a lot of shit, but a great teammate as a young player to come up and learn under and teach you the right way to do things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And because you played in Indiana when he was the president there. Mm-hmm. What kind of dude he was.
Yeah. No, he was definitely a prankster. He was I had stories with him where I had some stuff that went on in my early career with I had this catfish situation, and he texted me the picture that got leaked. And it was just funny, him being, the president and the relationship that we had. But that was him, man. He was just a prankster, and he would have his days. I will say that. Some days, not to fuck with Larry. But then, for the most part, he was, he was pretty cool and chill.
We've heard the rumors that Larry would actually be offended if another white guy would be guarding him. Was that true? And do you have any stories of him kind of complaining about that?
That's definitely true. He definitely took it as an insult if you put a white dude on him. And the one example that I can remember, we were playing Phoenix Suns. I think Cotton Fitzsimmons was their head coach. And they had a pretty good player, white dude named Tom Chambers. That could, I don't know if you guys remember him jumping over Mark Jackson when he dunked the ball. And Tom Chambers was guarding him. And Larry caught the ball in front of their bench. And just turned around and just had a full-on conversation with Cotton Fitzsimmons and their coaching staff. Y'all really gonna try to disrespect me like this? Y'all gonna put this white dude on me and think that he could guard me? And then just turn around and just shot a jumper in his face and just went down court, shaking his head. But stuff like that was just commonplace, But he definitely felt insulted if you tried to put a white dude on him.
That's funny.
I want to take you to your coaching years. Back in 2007, where your boy Kobe Bryant publicly went on and said he wanted to get traded from the Lakers. And considering at this time you've been knowing this man for many years, I want to know, did you ever have a conversation with him about his future? Because we had our boy Jerry West sitting right there. He said Kobe called him on his phone and was like, hey, I want to be traded to the Grizzlies, man. Give me a little insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the business side of it and all of that, I don't know all of that, but he was serious, and it was all part of his tactics in terms of, the team wasn't very good at that time, right? We had Smush Parker was, I think, our starting point guard, and Kwame Brown, I think, was our starting center. They had traded Shaq, so, we had, the team was, I don't even think the team was a playoff team that year. So Kobe was trying to put pressure on the Lakers to fortify the roster, or he was going to invoke his free agency and test the market. And probably also reminded them that when Shaq was a young player, how Orlando let him get away for nothing. And he had the ability to walk without the Lakers getting any kind of compensation or anything with him. So lo and behold, by the end of that season, or before the trade deadline that season, I think we traded Javaris Crittenton, Kwame Brown, and we had the rights to Marc Gasol, who was still playing over in Spain. We had drafted him with the second round that year. We traded those three to the Grizzlies, Memphis, for Pau Gasol. Went from the terrible team in 2007 to 2008, going to the finals and losing we lost to the Celtics in the finals that year.
You brought up the trade bringing Pau in. Was there any other superstars that was on the table or that y'all was looking at besides Pau, or was Pau the initial target that Kobe wanted?
Yeah, I think that Kevin Garnett was free, and wanted to get out of Minnesota at that time. And so everybody was hoping, because at that time, I think Kobe had already switched over to Nike, but Kevin Garnett was an Adidas guy. Kobe had started out being Adidas. So we thought that there was going to be a chance that KG would want to come and play with Kobe, which, if that would have happened. And then we already had gone through some stuff with, I don't know if that was before or after, we had traded for Chris Paul, and then David Stern stepped in and said, nah, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But we thought for sure we were going to have a chance. I think that's off the top of my head, that's the only one that I could really remember that we thought we might have a chance to get. That didn't happen. I think KG ended up going to Boston. And so we ended up with Pau, which worked out great. They beat us in 2008. We won the championship in 2009 and 2010. In 2010, we were able to get revenge against their loss, avenge the loss of, from 2008.
Celtics, yeah. How did Stern veto that trade? What part of that trade?
Stern was a gangster.
Yeah, no, I know that. But because the trade where we all thought, even as a kid, like me knowing like, oh, okay, Chris Paul about to go to the Lakers.
Right.
And then I find out later, like, nah.
Yeah, because it happened.
Yeah.
And then it didn't.
So what, like, Stern just was like, nah, this ain't.
So what helped him make that not happen was, at the time, New Orleans owners, they were selling the team or whatever. So the team was actually being controlled by the NBA.
Got it.
Because the sale hadn't gone through or whatever. And so, they were there. All the other teams were complaining about how the small market teams never have a chance because these larger markets always can afford to pay the stars, and they can, and so they always end up losing the players. So when that trade happened, because I remember somehow Lamar was going to end up in Dallas, and he was going to be part of the trade, and then he was like, I'm not going to Dallas, and what have you. But then Stern came in and said he vetoed the trade.
So it's a 3-team trade?
Yeah, it was a 3-team trade, and I don't even remember who we were going to get. I think we were going to get David West, and because at the time he was playing in New Orleans, and I can't remember who else, but yeah, the trade never happened. Like I said, it happened, but then he vetoed it.
Vetoed it.
And I think he was able to do it because during that time, the league was controlling the New Orleans franchise until they made the trade. Until they made the sale.
Yeah. Man, that woo.
Yeah.
So Kobe possibly could have been with KG, could have been with CP.
That would have been scary.
But he still ends up with 5 championships.
That's crazy. I
Yeah.
wonder how much he would have had if he had a deal.
Right.
Boy, the 10, 11, shit. I want to talk about when you left the Lakers and you became the assistant coach with young big nose PG over there when he was young with the little hairline. I want to know what moments out of them 2 seasons with him stick with you about coaching PG.
I knew one thing. I knew he had grew up in the LA area, and that he was very talented. I didn't know much else about him. I knew he had gone to where'd you commit to first?
Pepperdine.
And then Fresno.
Santa Clara first, then Pepperdine.
And then end up at Fresno. So I knew a little bit about him, not a whole lot. And then when I got to Indiana and I actually, started working with him, I was like, damn, this dude is damn near 6'9", 6'8", 6'9". And I'm not just saying that because we here, but I think that what separates MJ and what separates Kobe from all the other their contemporaries and counterparts is that obviously the God-given talent, their work ethic and drive and all of that, but they were fundamentally sound also, right? So you had guys like Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady and what have you, other guys that were really, really good, but they weren't as fundamentally sound in terms of the footwork and stuff that they had, that Kobe and Michael had.
Right.
So when I got to Indiana, PG asked me a lot of questions about Kobe. What was his work ethic like? What did he do? This, that, and the other. And we talked about the area on the floor, the pinch posts, and like, this is the kill spot because it's hard for people to come double team you from this spot. And so, and you can also, you're within passing distance of your other four teammates. You can get to the basket in one dribble. It's within your shooting range. So all these things that, and I shared stories with him about how Kobe used to practice his moves 5 or 10 minutes without a ball, just visualizing what the defense was going to do. Then with the ball, just doing the different pivots and then start shooting. He would do that, pretty much every day before practice. And so when I first got there with P, some mornings we would come in and we would do stuff. And then some mornings, he was hanging out or whatever and wouldn't come or would be late or whatever. And then I'd be like, well, I'm going to tell you one thing about Kobe. He didn't never shortcut anything.
Right.
So when it was time to work, like he had this mentality, this is his job. And so he's going to put his time in at his job. That has to be first priority above everything else. He took to that because he really looked up to Kobe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Started to do it, started to put in the work, quickly elevated his level of play. And as I got closer with him and started finding out what some of his interests were, fishing was one of them. So
we got really bonded.
Right. And I lived on the lake.
Right.
They all lived downtown at that time, I believe. And so, so one time his father was out visiting. They came over. I had a little pontoon boat. We went out on the boat, we fished. And so I was like, okay, I know two things that I can get his attention about. Fishing and anything Kobe related. And so as that season went on, I noticed that he got a lot of shots blocked when he would go to the basket, right? Like he didn't have the mentality at that time of finishing, throwing the ball down. He was going to the basket thinking about laying it up. And then I remember pulling him aside one day and I said, hey man, you damn near 6'8". You're athletic, long. Your mentality got to change. When you get in the lane, stop ducking and avoiding contact and start going up and dunking on them.
Right.
This picture right here, and I said it before you got here, when I looked up, that was his coming of age as a man in the NBA.
Look at his nose.
We playing the Heat, LeBron, and he went down the lane and he went up, and that was the first time that I saw him like, reckless abandon. I'm dunking on whoever's coming. You see Birdman tried to come over and got out of the way. And when that happened, that's when he became a man in the NBA on that play that's in that picture.
Come on.
And I talked about it before as well. They called a timeout right after that. And so he was walking to the bench and LeBron was walking to their bench and LeBron said something to him. P walked over and then LeBron dapped him. And then that was to me like okay, now you're in this echelon of being an NBA star.
I like this picture more now because it got more meaning for me.
Yeah. That's when it was. No, I said that before you said that.
Yeah, he literally kept telling me because I was getting it blocked by D Wade. Brian was blocking my shit. Like, so he like, you damn near 6'9".
Yeah.
Like, stop being small. So the next opportunity I had, I gotta go finish this shit.
Yeah.
And then really that whole series, everything I tried to dunk everything that I could.
Awesome too.
And from that point on, it kind of changed how I attacked the rim.
What did you get? You got most improved player. Was it that year or the next year?
That was our first Miami.
Yeah, that's the first.
It was that
one.
year. That was my third year. Yeah.
So he got most improved player in the NBA that year, and if y'all could pull up some footage of when he was up on stage getting his trophy for most improved player.
They gonna pull it up.
It was
They gonna pull it up.
Let me
That's
tell
how
you
y'all used to wear y'all
Wait,
suits.
was that the red one?
No, it wasn't red.
It was all black.
Okay.
Me, you, Jackie, we could all fit in that suit.
Okay.
And it was about
baggy.
this much too long.
Please show
I
us
want
a
to take
picture.
a picture now.
Please
Y'all
show us a
gotta
picture.
find it.
Oh my God.
Y'all gotta find it.
Who was Joe Taylor back then?
I didn't have one. I was in Indy.
He was bopping shit, touching, like, yeah, this look right.
It's bigger than
What
Steve
is it?
Harvey.
No, that's
But
doing me justice right there. You got to do
you got to see how long the pants were and
That's
everything.
funny.
That's how I used to wear y'all suits though.
He trying to be professional, came out there looking goofy.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was nasty. I am not gonna lie. The bottom of the pants was ripping because the pants was too long.
Because they was dragging on the ground. They probably was getting caught around his shoe and everything.
Trying to walk like, looking behind.
Yeah.
I will say though that like I think having you there at that point in my career really changed. Cause that Kobe was my guy, so to have someone that have seen that side of Kobe and could share what he went through, how he prepared, like that went a long ways for me. Because at that point in time, like Danny was my vet, and Danny did things a little different.
Right.
Danny was a great mentor for me, but I think where I was trying to get to was a little bit different of how Danny approached it.
For sure.
So and I remember I shared this story. You remember we played Golden State and I went scoreless. And we had that plane ride back and I had a conversation with you on that flight. I don't know if you remember. But that's where it kind of started, where you told me I need to have a routine.
Oh yeah.
And Kobe would do this and Kobe would do that. And we played them that night in Golden State and flew back to Indy. And I remember we got in maybe, 4, 5, 6 in the morning, something like that. I went straight to the gym and just put up hella shots. And that kind of changed how I prepared going into games in that season.
And that's what a coach is supposed to do, right? Like everybody has different ways of retaining information, different ways of learning. And I think being a parent, being a teacher kind of all goes together. All your kids are going to be different, and what have you. And so you got to tap into, okay, he might be a visual learner. He might be a auditory learner. You got to hear it. Or he's a kinesthetic learner. He got to put his body through it in order to be able to get it, right? Tex Winter used to always say 7 repetition. It takes seven repetitions of anything for your muscle memory to kick in, right? And so just in knowing that, like I said, fishing, how he admired Kobe, I knew I could grab his attention during that, but he put in the work. Once he established that this is my priority, this is how I can make a living and provide for my family and do all the things that all of us wanted to do. He tapped in, he did the work, and so that's the satisfaction that I get out of being a coach. Mm-hmm. Shit, I love playing a lot better because when you played, you could actually do something about it, right?
Right.
You can make a basket or you could shut somebody down, whatever. You just try to prepare your team as a coach and then hope that they can go out and execute. And not to mention, you put in a lot more work as a coach and get a lot less money.
Exactly.
That is true. Before we wrap on story mode, we gotta ask about the Latrell Sprewell, PJ Carlesimo altercation. I had no idea that you was on that team. You was back playing your hometown.
Yep.
On the Warriors at the time. What led to the chokehold Sprewell put on Carlesimo? And was there a buildup that y'all saw like, it's bubbling over, it's bound to happen?
Yeah, so nobody really talked about it because they actually, the law enforcement put a gag order on us. The judge put a gag order on the whole team to not talk about the incident. But yeah, there was a buildup. Basically, PJ, who's a great guy, off the court and what have you, do anything for you, to give you the shirt off his back, was a different animal when he was coaching, right? So he referred to everybody as motherfucker this, motherfucker that, and I had just got traded to the Warriors from Orlando. So when I first got there and he was addressing everybody and talking to everybody like that, I was like, damn, is dude always like this? So Spree was an all-star, had represented the Warriors. PJ had just come over from coaching Portland, and prior to that, he was the head coach at Seton Hall, right? So college coaches, completely different animal than NBA, right? And so he brought some of that college shit to the NBA, which don't fly. So he had some, I think, personal issues with Sprewell because Sprewell wore the cornrows, the French braids. Sprewell didn't adhere to the dress code, and he worked and he was good, and so there's nothing that you could say about his work ethic and everything else. But when we got on the plane or on the bus to go wherever, he wore what he wanted to wear, usually sweats and some slides, and he would have his headphones on listening to his music, and that bugged PJ. So he'd be, and back then we had a dress code. So Sprewell was smart. He said, look, man, PJ would always say something to him about what he had on, about his way his hair was braided. So Sprewell one time took off his headphones and he said, we were on the plane, and he said, listen, man, I talked to my agent. Y'all can find me $500 if I don't adhere to the dress code. We got 41 away games. So take 500 times 41, that's 20,000, whatever, $100 and 20,000, and take that shit out of my check and leave me the fuck alone. I'm gonna dress how I want to dress. Put his headphones back on and then start listening to, he used to listen to Wu-Tang all the time, right? And he always used to say, you don't want to fuck with a soldier. and so we're in practice one day, me, Bimbo Coles, and me, Muggsy Bogues, and Sprewell are shooting at a basket. PJ comes in. We're just doing 3-man shooting, and he just comes down. And he's like, "You got to give me more than that." To Spree, and Spree was a worker, so he didn't say nothing. He kept shooting. PJ went away. He came back a couple minutes later. He's like, "If that's all you gonna give me, get the fuck out of my gym." So Spree said, "Look, man, you say one more thing to me, I'm gonna fuck you up." So everybody kind of was like, everybody was at different baskets. So he came back and said something again. And that time when he came back, Spree just took the ball, he just dropped it. He just walked over to PJ, grabbed him around the neck. So to be honest, the other players, because of how PJ used to talk to him, was like, fuck it, go ahead, choke the shit out of his ass, right? And the assistant coaches and everybody, they all ran over trying to get Spree off of him. And he was like a crazed animal at that time. So he never let go of PJ's neck. He was kicking the assistants that was trying to get him loose. They finally pried him loose. And so then security came in and they kicked him out. So we met as a team. Now, this is in 97. And I'm one of the older guys on the team, even at that time, me, Muggsy Bogues. And so the PJ, Gary St. Jean, who was our GM, they meet, they say, listen, this happened in-house. We're going to keep it in-house. Don't nobody say anything to anybody. What do you guys think is an appropriate punishment for him, right? So we met, we said 10-game suspension. And he got to go to some anger management classes. So everybody agreed, okay, cool, that's what it'll be. That was going to cost him $1 million. So I live in Oakland. So practice ended. We're not supposed to say nothing to anybody. By the time I get home, 10 minutes from the practice facility, I turn on the TV.
It's all there.
They got pictures of PJ's neck with the fingernail marks in his neck and everything, and the Warriors got to put their spin on what happened. But we got a gag order that we couldn't talk about it. So what happened was they ended up suspending Spree for the rest of the season. He had the shoe contract with Converse at the time. So all the endorsements he had, they dropped him. They kind of painted him as the villain. And like we didn't condone what he did, but it's two sides to every story. So we decided as a team, we gonna go when he had a press conference, we gonna stand up behind the stage and support of our teammate. Well, we also told all the guys, the young guys, look, for y'all that don't have a lot of skin in the game, you might not want to get up here on the stage because it's going to be the beginning of the end for us. But we just want to make it clear that we are here to support him. We don't condone what he did, and he's going to apologize for it, and we standing here behind him. Me, Bimbo Coles, Joe Smith, Felton Spencer, Robert Ory, who was playing for Houston. We were getting ready to play them, and him and Spree went to Alabama together, so he even came and stood behind there with us. And it was maybe one or two other guys. And Dwayne Farrell. So we stand up behind him. Spree apologizes and what have you. About 2 weeks later, I'm in the hotel, get a knock on the door. It's PJ Carlesimo. We're in Portland. You and Joe Smith just got traded to Philadelphia for Jim Jackson and Clarence Weatherspoon. And then everybody who stood behind
all traded.
Traded or Dickie Simpkins got cut.
Yeah.
I see him, I'm flying to Portland. I see him at the airport. I'm like, me and Joe Smith at the airport. I'm like, man, what you doing here? You got traded too? He was like, nah, they cut me. That's exactly how it went down. And it was a build-up. It was frustration because the team was losing. PJ was hard on everybody, like I told you earlier, how the coaches used to deal with players. And Spree wasn't having it.
Yeah.
And so
y'all had his back, though. He better get y'all some Sprewell room for free.
Right.
Shit.
Better have them dollars.
Yeah. Something. Y'all better have some real shit.
Hey, B, we want to thank you, man. It's a wrap for the episode. We appreciate your time and the story modes that you have for us today. It's a wrap.
But we need to congratulate you, though, P.
Oh, what?
Oh, yeah.
Being the Clippers leading 3 points.
Yeah.
Come on, baby.
Yeah. Congratulations, man.
In fashion, when it happened, I was over there arguing with the refs.
Because I be on his ass about I'm like, look, man, I ain't never in the 36 years I've been involved in the NBA seen a referee say, you know what? Rewind the clock 3 minutes and let's take that foul. Let's call that foul that we missed on him or whatever. Yeah. And so he ended up losing 3 or 4 possessions because he's so mad at the referees, and like he said, he was doing that.
As they congratulate me, I'm over here.
He still ain't done something that I did.
What?
Who the first dude in the NBA to ever hit 10 3-pointers in an NBA game?
10 3-pointers?
Stephen Curry almost did it the other day.
He had 11 the other day. But who's the first one to hit 10?
Yeah, you said that. You was the first to do it.
Me.
Yeah.
Come on, put something on it.
He was the first. He did say that. That's a wrap. You guys tune in. We'll be back next Monday on Podcast P.